You know how many times Nokia tried to rebirth and came back to the track again? Maybe not. And it's because those attempts weren't that bold people would talk about it. But this time, Nokia just made the strongest comeback ever, with a different name, different goal, and their own people. However, that's not what we're here to talk about today. This is HMD Global, or Human Mobile Devices, you can say. It's a Finnish company that basically rose from the ashes of Nokia's devastated mobile phone empire. This company started out with a mission to bring back the magic of the Nokia brand, but it's moved way past just being a licensee of a familiar name. And now, HMD is carving out its own spot in the smartphone world. They are building an identity that's more than just nostalgia. That's why we thought of sharing the full story of this brand. How did some former Nokia employees turn it into a successful company? And can Nokia ever be as big as it was back in the day? So, the story of HMD Global basically started off on November 9, 2015, when the company was officially set up in Helsinki, Finland. But the real turning point came out in May 2016, and it's kind of wild how it all went down. See, back in 2014, Microsoft Mobile bought Nokia's phone business for a massive $7.2 billion. But things didn't go as planned, and their Windows Phone experiment pretty much flopped. So, in 2016, Microsoft decided to cut its losses and sell off Nokia's feature phone division and the rights to use the Nokia name. And this is where HMD and another company, FIH Mobile, came in. FIH was a part of Foxconn. They scooped up the whole deal for just $350 million. Honestly, that's like buying a luxury car for the price of a used one. This deal was a lifeline for Nokia's mobile legacy, which had gone from ruling over 50% of the market in the early 2000s to almost disappearing by the mid-2000s and teens. HMD got exclusive rights to use the Nokia brand on mobile phones and tablets worldwide, except in Japan, until 2024. They also got access to Nokia's huge pile of patents, although they had to pay royalties for that. The people behind HMD weren't just some random business guys trying to cash in on nostalgia. The company was actually founded by a bunch of Nokia veterans who knew the mobile game inside out. The team was under the lead of Jean-François Barrel, a supply chain expert who became chairman, and Arto Numila, the first CEO who had a ton of experience at Nokia. Their goal was pretty simple: to bring back Nokia's reputation for making durable and straightforward phones, but this time with Android on board. By December 1, 2016, HMD was officially up and running and started rolling out its first Nokia-branded devices. And they weren't just reviving old-school Nokia phones. HMD set up its headquarters in Espoo, Finland, literally across the street from Nokia's own offices. It was a pretty symbolic move, kind of like saying Nokia was back home. They also teamed up with Foxconn for manufacturing, so that they had the muscle to take on a pretty crowded smartphone market. Well, if we see the stages where HMD rose, we would say the whole scene was a roller coaster ride. HMD didn't waste any time getting started. In 2017, they jumped right in. They used Nokia name to catch people's attention with a promise of pure, secure, and up-to-date Android devices. They teamed up with Google's Android One program to deliver clean and regular software updates. This was a smart move to leave behind the bad memories of Nokia's Windows Phone days. At first, Arto Numila was the one leading HMD, but in July 2017, he stepped down, and Florian Seiche, another former Nokia employee, took over as CEO. Florian's experience helped bring stability to the company and a better understanding of the global market. On the financial side, HMD made some solid moves. By 2018, they had raised enough money to be valued at over $1 billion. They even earned the unicorn title that many tech companies dream about. In August 2020, they got another big boost, around $230 million in funding from big names like Google, Qualcomm, and even Nokia itself. This cash was set aside to help the company expand into 5G smartphones and break into growing markets like Brazil, India, and Africa. They also had backing from Smart Connect LP, a private equity fund linked to Jean-François Barry. HMD promised to invest $500 million over 3 years to beef up its marketing and research efforts. By 2019, they had sold over 240 million devices, mostly feature phones. However, their revenue took a hit that time. It dropped from 2.4 billion euros in 2018 to 1.7 billion euros, partly because they pulled out of markets that weren't profitable. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic, which tested the brand's ability to survive. But instead of giving up, they quickly shifted to online sales and managed to get back to making a profit by June 2020. They tried to balance Nokia's legacy with a fresh approach to the ever-changing smartphone market. So, the journey of HMD's phones started by mixing old-school vibes with some smart choices. In December 2016, they launched the Nokia 150 and its dual SIM version. Then, in January 2017, they introduced their first Android smartphone, the Nokia 6. Things got more exciting at the Mobile World Congress 2017 when HMD showed off the Nokia 3, 5, and a refreshed Nokia 3310. This new 3310 came with a color screen and the classic Snake game, which brought back a lot of memories for people. These early phones were mostly aimed at budget and mid-range buyers. Apart from those regular models, HMD had some hits like the Nokia 7.1 and Nokia 8 Sirocco in 2018, which did pretty well. But not everything went smoothly. Their high-end phone, the Nokia 9 PureView, which came out in 2019, had a fancy 5-camera setup. Sadly, software issues and slow updates held it back. By 2023, HMD switched gears. They started focusing on making phones that were easier to repair and more eco-friendly. One of their standout models was the Nokia G22, which allowed users to replace screens and batteries using basic tools. This move was a hit, and the phone earned a spot on Time's Best Inventions of 2023 list. People liked the idea of fixing their own phones instead of just buying new ones. And in 2024, HMD decided to launch phones under its own name for the first time. In Europe, they started with the HMD Pulse series. In the US, they launched the HMD Vibe, which started at $150. These phones were budget-friendly, had decent features like Unisoc T606 or Snapdragon 680 chips, and were designed to be easily repairable. HMD also had some fun by teaming up with Mattel to launch the Barbie flip phone in August 2024. This pink, internet-free feature phone was priced at $130 and brought some retro vibes. From a secured future, in January 2024, the company rebranded from HMD Global to Human Mobile Devices. It's signaling that a big shift to a multi-brand approach. While Nokia phones will probably stick around, especially as feature phones, HMD is putting a lot of focus on its own smartphones. With upcoming models codenamed Pulse, Legend, and Pro, it looks like they're planning for a variety of options. They aim for 3/4 of their devices to be repairable by the end of the year. And their HMD Fusion, a modular phone with customizable cases, shows how they're thinking outside the box. On the manufacturing side, HMD is moving production to India, with plans to export to Europe and the US. This shift is all about being more cost-effective and tapping into global supply chain trends. They're also focusing on digital well-being, with projects like Project Wildflower, teased with Drew Barrymore at MWC 2025. Now, HMD's deal to use the Nokia name runs out in 2024, so they've got to quickly build their own brand identity. Nostalgia alone won't be enough to compete with giants like Xiaomi and Samsung. There are some challenges ahead. The HMD Vibe only offers 2 years of security updates, which is way behind competitors offering 5 years. And breaking into the US market with 5G still feels like a tough road. However, with fun collaborations like Barbie and FC Barcelona and a focus on affordable, repairable devices, HMD could find a loyal group of eco-conscious users and businesses. So, HMD's journey is all about resilience, change, and standing up against the throwaway culture of tech. The transition from Nokia smartphones to HMD-branded phones is a mix of saying goodbye to the old while moving towards something new and exciting. The company has sold millions of phones, faced some financial struggles, but kept pushing forward with a plan that mixes Finnish practicality with a global outlook. It's still unclear if they can take on the big brands, but HMD's story is that of an underdog trying to stand out in a crowded market.